Hello, everyone out there in YouTube land. Continuing right along, Book 4, Canto 2, The Growth of the Flame. Here we go. A land of mountains and wide sun-beat plains, and giant rivers pacing to vast seas, a field of creation and spiritual hush, silence swallowing life's axe into the deeps, of thought's transcendent climb and heavenward leap, a brooding world of revere and trance, filled with the mightiest works of God and man, where nature seemed to a dream of the divine. A beauty and grace and grandeur had their home, harbored the childhood of the incarnate flame. Over her watched millennial influences and the deep godheads of a grandiose past, looked on her and saw the future's godheads come as if this magnet drew their powers unseen. Earth's brooding wisdom spoke to her still breast, mounting from mind's last peaks to mate with God's, making Earth's brilliant thoughts a springing board to dive into the cosmic vastness. The knowledge of the thinker and the seer saw the unseen and thought the unthinkable, opened the enormous doors of the unknown, rent man's horizon into infinity. A shoreless sweep was lent to the mortal's axe, and art and beauty sprang from human depths, nature and soul veiled in nobility, ethics the human keyed to intimate heaven. The harmony of a rich culture's tones refined the sense and magnified its reach, to hear the unheard and glimpse the invisible, and taught the soul to soar beyond things known, inspiring life to greaten and break its bonds. Aspiring to a mortal's unseen world, living Earth's safety, daring wings of mind, leaving Earth's safety, daring wings of mind, bore her above the trodden fields of thought, crossing the mystic seas of beyond, to live on eagle heights near to the sun. There wisdom sits on her eternal throne, all her life's turns lead her to symbol doors, admitting to secret powers that were her kin, a depth of truth, innate of bliss, a mystic alkalite trained in nature's school, aware of the marvel of created things. She laid the secrecies of her heart's deep muse upon the altar of the wonderful. Her hours were a ritual in the timeless fane. Her axe became a gesture of sacrifice, invested with a rhythm of higher spheres. The word was used as a hierarchic means for the release of the imprisoned spirit into communion with its comrade gods, or it helped to beat out new expressive forms of that which labors in the heart of life. Some immemorial soul in men and things, seeker of the unknown and the unborn, carrying a light from the ineffable to rend the veil of the last mysteries. Intense philosophies pointed earth to heaven, or on foundations broad as cosmic space, upraised the earth mind to superhuman heights, overpassing lines that please the outward eyes, but hide the sight of that which lives within. Sculpture and painting concentrated sense upon an inner vision, motionless verge, revealed a figure of the invisible, unveiled all nature's meaning in a form, or caught into a body the divine. The architecture of the infinite discovered here its inward musing shapes, captured into wide breaths of soaring stone. Music brought down celestial yearning, song held the merged heart absorbed in rapturous depths. linking the human with the cosmic cry, the world interpreting movements of the dance, molded idea and mood to a rhythmic sway, and posture crafts minute and subtle lines, eternized a swift moment's memory, or showed in a carving sweep a cup's design. The underlying patterns of the unseen poems and largeness cast like moving whirls, and meters surging with ocean's voice, translated by grandeurs locked in nature's heart, but thrown now into a crowded glory of speech. The beauty and sublimity of her forms, the passage of her passion of her moments and her moods, lifting the human word nearer to the gods. Man's eyes could look into the inner realms. His scrutiny discovered numbers law, and organized the motions of the stars, mapped out the invisible fashion of the world, questioned the process of his thoughts, or made a theorized diagram of mind and life. These things she took in as her nature's food, but these alone could fill not her wide self. A human seeking limited by its gains, to her they seemed the great and early steps, hazardous of a young discovering spirit which saw not yet by its own native light. It tapped the universe with testing knocks, or stretched to find truth, mind's divining rod. There was a growing out of numberless sides, but not the widest seeing of the soul, not yet the vast, direct, immediate touch, nor yet the art and wisdom of the gods. A boundless knowledge greater than man's thought, a happiness too high for heart and sense. Locked in the world and yearning for release, she felt in her, waiting as yet for form. It asked for objects around which to grow, and nature strong to bear with recoil the splendor of her native royalty, her greatness and her sweetness and her bliss, her might to possess and her vast power to love. Earth made a stepping stone to conquer heaven. The soul saw beyond heaven's limiting boundaries, met a grand light from the unknowable, and dreamed of a transcendent action sphere, aware of the universal self in all. She turned to living hearts and human forms, her soul's reflections, complements, counterparts, the close outlying portions of her being, divided from her by walls of body and mind, yet to her spirit bound by ties divine. Overcoming invisible hedge and mass defense and the loneliness that separates soul from soul, she wished to make all one immense embrace, that she might house in it all living things raised into a splendid point of seeing light. Out of divisions sense and conscience cleft, and make them one with God and world and her. Only a few responded to her call, still fewer the screened divinity, and strove to mate its godhead with their own, approaching with some kinship to her heights, uplifted towards luminous secrecies, or conscious of some splendor hidden above. They leaped to find her in a moment's flash, glimpsing a light and a celestial vast, but could not keep the vision and the power, and fell back to life's dull, ordinary tone. Woof. A mind daring, heavenly experiment, growing towards some largeness they felt near, testing the unknowns bound with eager touch. They still were prisoned by their human grain. They could not keep up with their tireless step, too small and eager for her large pace will, too narrow to look with the unborn infinite gaze. Their nature weary grew of things too great for even the close partners of her thoughts, who could have walked the nearest to her ray, worshipped the power and light they felt in her, but could not match the measure of her soul. A friend and yet too great holy to know, she walked in their front towards a greater light, their leader and queen over their hearts and souls. One close to their bosoms, yet divine and far, admiring and amazed they saw her stride, attempting with a godlike rush and leap, heights from their human nature, stature too remote, or with a slow, great, many-sided toil, pushing towards aims they hardly could conceive, yet forced to be the satellites of her sun. They moved, unable to forego her light, desiring they clutched at her with outstretched hands, or followed stumbling in paths she made, or longing with their self of life and flesh, they clung to her for heart's nourishment and support. The rest they could not see in visible light. Vaguely they bore in her inner mightiness, or bound by the senses and the longing heart, adoring with a turbid human love. They could not grasp the mighty spirit she was, or change by closeness to be even as she. Some felt with her, some felt her with their souls and thrilled with her. A greatness felt near yet beyond mind's grasp. To see her was a summons to adore. To be near her drew a high communion's force. So men worship a God too great to know, too high, too vast, to wear a limiting shape. They feel a presence and obey a might, adore a love whose rapture invades their breast. To a divine ardor quickening the heart beats. A law they follow, greatening heart and life, obeyed to the breath is a new distant diviner air. Open to man is a freer, happier world, to see high steps climbing to self and light. Her divine parts the soul allegiance called. It saw, it felt, it knew the deity. Her will was puissant on their nature's acts. Her heart's inexhaustible sweetness lured their hearts, and being they loved whose bounds exceeded theirs. Her measure they could not reach, but bore her touch, answering what the flowers answer to the sun. They gave themselves to her and asked no more. One greater than themselves, too wide for their kin, their minds could not understand nor wholly know. Their lives replied to hers, moved at her words. They felt a Godhead and obeyed a call, answered to her lead and did her work in the world. Their lives, their natures moved, compelled by hers, as if the truth of their own larger selves put on an aspect of divinity to exalt them to a pitch beyond their earths. They felt a larger future meet their walk. She held their hands, she chose for them their paths. They were moved by her towards great unknown things. Faith drew them in the joy to feel themselves hers. They lived in her, they saw the world with her eyes. Some turned to her against their nature's bent, divided between wonder and revolt, drawn by her charm and mastered by her will, possessed by her striving to possess. Possessed by her striving to possess. Impatient subjects, their tied longing hearts hugging the bonds close of which they most complained, murmured at a yoke they would have wept to lose. The splendid yoke of her beauty and her love. Others pursued her with life's blind desires, and claiming all of her as their lonely own, hastened to engross her sweetness meant for all, as her claims liked for its lone separate need, demanding her for their sole jealous clasp. They asked from her movements bounded like their own, and to their smallness craved like a response, or their repined that she surpassed their grip, and hoped to bind her close with longing's cords, or finding her touch desired too strong to bear. They blamed for her a tyranny they loved, shrank into themselves as from too bright a sun, yet hankered from a splendor they refused. Angrily enamored of her sweet passionate ray, the weakness of their earth could hardly bear. They longed but cried out at the touch desired, inapt to meet divinity so close. Intolerant of force they could not house. Some, drawn unwillingly by her divine sway, endured it like a sweet but alien spell, unable to mount to levels too sublime. They yearned to draw her down to their own earth, or forced to center round her their passionate lives. They hoped to bind to their hearts' human needs her glory and grace that had enslaved their souls. But mid this whirl their hearts that answered her call, none could stand up her equal and her mate. In vain she stooped to equal them with her heights. Too pure that air was for small souls to breathe. These comrade selves to raise to her own wide breaths her heart desired, and fill with her own power, that a diviner force might enter life, a breath of Godhead, greater human time. Although she leaned down to her littleness, covering their lives with her strong, passionate hands, and knew by symphony their needs and wants, and dived in the shallow wave depths of their lives, and met and shared their heartbeats of grief and joy, and bent to heal their sorrow and their pride, lavishing the might that was hers on her lone peak, to lift to it their aspirations cry. And though she drew their souls into her vast, and surrounded with the silence of her deeps, and held as the great mother holds her own, only her earthly surface bore their charge, and mixed its fire with their mortality, her grief self-lived soul unclaimed within. Oftener in dumb nature's stir and peace and nearness she could feel serenely one. The force in her drew earth's subhuman broods, and to her spirit's large and free delight, she joined the ardent hued, magnificent lives of animal and bird and flower and tree. They answered to her with a simple heart, and man a dim disturbing somewhat lives. It knows, but turns away from the divine light, preferring the dark ignorance of the fall. Among the many who came drawn to her, nowhere she found her partner of high tasks, comrade of her soul, her other self, who was made with like God and nature one. Some near approached, were touched, caught fire, then failed. Too great was her dream, too pure her force, thus lighting earth around her like a sun. Thus lighting earth around her like a sun. Yet in her innermost sky, an orb aloof, a distance served her from those a distance severed her from those most close. Puissant apart her soul as the gods live, as yet unlinked with the broad human scene. In a small circle of young, eager hearts, her beginnings, her being's early school and closed domain, apprenticed in the business of earth life, she schooled her heavenly strain to bear its touch, content in her little garden of the gods as blooms a flower in an unvisited place. Earth nursed unconscious still the inhabiting flame, yet something deeply stirred and dimly new. There was a movement and a passionate call, a rainbow dream, a hope of golden change. Some secret wing of expectation beat, a growing sense of something new and rare and beautiful stole across the heart of time. There a faint whisper of her touched the soil, breathed like a hidden need the soul divines. The eye of the greater world discovered her, and wonder lift up its bardic voice, a key to a light still kept in being's cave, a sun word of ancient mystery since her name ran murmuring on the lips of men, exalted and sweet like an inspired verse struck from the epic lyre of rumor's winds, or sung like a chanted thought by a poet fame, but like a sacred symbols was cut, but like a sacred symbol was the cult. But like a sacred symbols was that cult, admired, unsought, intangible to the grasp. Her beauty and flaming strength were seen afar, like lightning playing with the fallen day. A glory unapproachably divine, no equal heart came close to join her, no transient earthly love assailed her calm. No hero passion had the strength to seize, no eyes demanded her replying eyes. A power within her awed the imperfect flesh, the self-protecting genius in our clay divine, the goddess in the woman's shape, and drew back from a touch beyond its kind the earth nature bound in sense life a narrow make. The hearts of men are amorous of clay kin, or amorous of clay kin, and bear not spirits lone and high who bring fire intimations from the deathless plains, too vast for souls not born to mate with heaven. Whoever is too great must lonely live. Adored he walks in mighty solitude. Vain is his labor to create his kind. His only comrade is strength within. Thus was it for a while with Savitri. All worshipped marveling, none dared to claim. Her mind set high, pouring its golden beams. Her heart was a crowded temple of delight, a single lamp lit in perfection's house, a bright pure image in a priestless shrine. Mid those encircling lives her spirit dwelt apart in herself until her hour of fate. Period. End Canto 2. Oh, wow. This is so exciting. I love it. Hope y'all are enjoying this. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Next up will be Canto 3, titled The Call to Quest. I'm just going to go get some more water and continue right on. I can't leave this book alone. I feel like the grandpa and the kid midway into Neverending Story. No, don't put the book down, grandpa. Anyways, I love you all. Sending healing, love, and light to all. We're all one. Todos somos uno. Muy bien. All one.